All right, we're rolling. So my name is Nick.
Okay. Hi, Nick.
Hi.
Eddie.
Eddie, good to meet you.
Good to meet you, Nick.
Cool. Yeah, I'm just, so this is something that I've been doing for a while now.
Okay.
And a couple of weeks ago, for the first time, a friend and I came down with all his YouTube gear and did this on the train. I'm here without cameras today, but I'm just recording audio. So to start with, can you think of something that you believe? And, it could be something that either you hold deeply or that, it's usually most interesting if it's something that might help determine how you act, like how you treat people, how you vote. Because, when we hold beliefs and if you're not holding them for good reasons, then you affect other people, right?
Yeah. To think about that. That's a good question. Yeah, I mean, I guess I do have a belief that helping others is sort of a core value that I believe in
Fantastic.
for multiple reasons.
Helping others is a core value, was the first thing that he said there.
So I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. And is this something that's meaningful to you?
Yeah.
So what role does that play in your life? Like, how does that how does that give you meaning, or what does that mean to you in your
I think
life?
it
Why does it, or he said, does that give you meaning? What role does that play in your life? I like those questions.
Yeah. One thing I want to say just about this opening is the first few chats I was having is I had the recorder off during the recruiting of the chat. So we've already had a little bit of a chat before this, right? So there's been a little bit of rapport building. There's been me explaining what I'm doing before I turn on the recorder. And I'm starting to change the way I do that because I kind of like the thing. Again, this goes back to Anthony Magnabosco's videos where, you would hear him say to people, "Hey, how you doing? You're going on the trail. Like, are you interested in doing a chat?" So I've started doing more of turning on the recorder first before I start approaching people. And so, not only do I get that preamble and kind of you can see the process happening of getting them to agree to a chat, but also I'm thinking about maybe doing a show of just the rejections because I end up getting lots of rejections as well. But that I just wanted to say that about the beginning of the chat because to me that sounded like a very abrupt start. It's like, "Hi, I'm Nick. So here's what we're doing," right? But there was a maybe a 2 or 3 minute period of preamble that came before that.
Yeah, I'd like to see the preamble, just because you said you have such a high success rate on the platform of getting people to interview.
Yeah.
And I want to hear what that sounds like, just to
Yeah.
see, possibly figure out why that's the case.
Yeah, usually it's just I walk up to people and I say, "Hi, are you interested in doing a brief interview while we ride the train today?" It's usually as quick about that. And if people are interested, they're like, "Huh, what's it about?" And then I tell them about SE and all that. Or sometimes people go, "Yeah, sure, let's do it." And then we're into it. And then I'm explaining it while we do it.
Cool.
Probably it's partially how I sort of my sense of self, kind of how I decide sort of, what I do in terms of like career decisions or, how I interact with other people.
Nice.
International
Excellent.
District.
So-
Chinatown. Doors to my right.
What is the reason that that's important to you, or why do you believe that's a good thing to do?
I just it's kind of I don't know if not necessarily spiritual, but I feel like it's sort of like again
You
it's
got
sort of
someone trying to
yeah
move behind you
where
there.
I find some sort of meaning
Yeah.
in sort of kind of all the chaos. So I just and it makes me feel good, I guess, in some ways, probably.
Yeah.
So for multiple reasons, yeah.
Excellent. All right. So, why is something making you feel good a good reason to believe something?
Um,
not sure I like how that was phrased potentially.
Okay.
Let's see. You said like so the claim was like helping others is a core value or like important, a good thing.
He said
It's kind of the
it
claim, I think.
helps for him to find some meaning in all the chaos.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I love
Helps
that.
to
And he
find.
also said it makes, and then he also said it makes him feel good. So that phraseology is something I've been playing with, and I'll tell you, I I'm I'm getting better at figuring out where to use it. That's specifically a way of phrasing a question that that David does in sound epistemology. Uh, and to my mind, it takes you one layer deeper than sometimes the questions that I think to ask. So it's not just why do you believe that's true, but why is blah a good reason to believe it's true? So it takes you from the reason to the method, right? So you're saying, why is that a good reason? Why is that a good, yeah, not just what's the reason, but why is that a good reason? And so I really liked the way that happened. So I'm trying to adopt that phraseology. How would you say it would be different? What do you think you would say in that situation? Or any of you, like I have this, not just the Pierce show, although it literally is the Pierce show.
I think my objection isn't with like asking why, like how the person got here, like why this got you to here.
Mhm.
I think it's more of like I don't know that he's saying that anything in here is necessarily like true in the sense of like
Mhm.
truth claim about reality. It seems
Yeah.
like it's something else. I don't even know the right word to describe it.
So is it the belief? So because I do say, why is this a good reason to believe something? And I'm very conscious in that moment that his belief is a value and not a truth claim. Um, and so maybe what I could have said would be, why does feeling good about something, why is that a good reason to hold a value? Do you think that's better, or are you?
I think it's better. Um, why is this a good reason to come to a conclusion? I don't know if I like that either. Reed,
Yeah.
do you have anything?
Yeah,
What do you think?
after hearing that back again, I'm kind of interpreting this as a kind of a different situation where this is maybe a more of a strategic claim. What did he say? He's finding meaning in all the chaos. Is that what he said?
Yeah, like it helps him find meaning in life, and it makes him feel good.
So maybe that could be the most broad question you're asking yourselves right now is like, what's the best way to find meaning in life or meaning in all this chaos?
Yeah,
And one strategy to do that is to help others.
right.
And one criteria to judge the quality of this strategy is to see if it makes you feel good.
Hmm.
Because and what's the relationship between you feeling good and having meaning?
Ooh, so if I said, if I had said in that moment, why is do you feel like feeling good is a good criterion to use to judge whether a value is valuable? I'm reaching for something and I'm not quite getting it.
Maybe to judge
Here's
the
making that
strategy for
statement.
finding meaning in the chaos
Yeah,
of helping others. Because
just
if you just go with the claim it's good to help others,
yeah.
nobody would disagree with that. That's a very benign, trivial,
I
normative
like
claim.
I like what Mango just put in chat, which is, why does that value align with how does that value align with who you are? I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah, he did mention sense of self too. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to jump back to something he said a little bit before that, and listening to it this time, I caught it and I missed an opportunity, because he says that helping people is a value uh, that might guide his career choice. And I missed an opportunity, I think, to say, oh, what do you do for work? And is that something, what did you choose for a career? And was that you know, did this value help get you there? You know, like if he's a doctor or a social worker, you know, fill in the blank. That's interesting. If I met him again, that might be something that I go and do a follow-up on. That would be a great reason to have him here in the chat, right? On the review. It's like, hey, I just realized I missed an opportunity to ask you what you do for work and how does the value of helping people, how did it get you into that career? And he might say, oh, I wasn't talking about me, dude. I'm a bond trader. You know, I didn't get a bond trader vibe off of the chat.
All right.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think there's a question of like, oh, you know, is it a selfish, or could be like, you know, could be like, well, you feel good because there could be different reasons that you feel good.
Mhm.
So, for example, like if you're hungry, right, and you eat, you might feel good because your body was hungry, and so it's like, well, and so it could be like in some ways, feeling good could be sort of a reinforcing, like, hey, this is a positive reinforcement, and the feeling is a way to sort of positively reinforce something that is inherently good. But yeah, I'm not sure if that's sort of necessarily the reason you should believe that it's true or not.
Yeah,
So
right. And
I like that
Happy to-
because I thought he was going towards, is altruism real? And then he took a different turn than I expected. And really what he got to is, or this is what it produces in my mind, is empathy or is helping others an evolved trait, and are we wired to feel good about helping other people? Good. Thank you, Mango.
Do you want to speak, Mango, or should we continue on?
Oh, yeah, no, I'm worried I'm going to interrupt. I just loved this response of his when I was listening. I was trying to think like what would be a good reason for me, and I logically went where he went as well. I thought it made sense to me.
think about this,
Mhm.
because what you're thinking of when we talk about epistemology, we can talk about value claims,
Mhm.
and we can talk about truth claims.
Mhm.
And I would say that what you're talking about is a value claim, right? So
Mhm.
that's something that you believe is
Mhm.
valuable.
Mhm.
How could we turn that into a truth claim? Like we say that,
Mhm.
you know, this is my belief, and here's what's true about it. So we can get to kind of like a true or false. And it may not be possible to do that.
Sure.
Right? There's some things that are kind of inherently about values,
Mhm.
and those are important to us. Right?
Right.
I'm wondering, Nick.
I'm conducting the ultimate sin in the Pierce Watkins universe. I'm value hunting normative claims.
Yeah.
and
When I first
yeah, I might not do that today, right? I'm like 2 weeks further on in my SE journey, and I'm trying to do that less.
I'm wondering, when I first heard this, I was like, I wonder what's going on in Nick's head right now. Like, what kind of answer is he thinking that what's his name, Eddie? That Eddie
Yeah.
might give. What are the potential answers here? What do you think that he could potentially give?
I think, well, I can come from, in terms of my motivation. I think I probably come preloaded with better tools for dealing with truth claims, and so I think at that moment I was kind of not knowing where to go, and so I wasn't really prepared to handle it in that way. And so I feel it's a little awkward, I think what I did. But in terms of where I think he might go with that, um I think what I was thinking, really what I'm trying to get to is, does he have a belief about something that underlies the value? In other words, is there a like, I believe the universe is like this, and that's why I think it's important to help people. Like, I believe that social cohesion is important. I believe that we need to support our tribe. I believe that the species will die out if we don't all support each other. That sort of thing. So that's I think the sort of thing that I was expecting to find, or fishing for.
Okay.
I don't know, but
I couldn't think of any, so that's why I was asking.
Yeah.
It's kind of fascinating. I really struggle with normative claims too, and I've never once thought to just ask, "Hey, I think this is a value claim. What's the truth claim underpinning your value claim?"
Yeah.
Is that taboo? Like, should we not do that?
I
think
do a
it
lot. I love to open up the inner workings of SE, and I'm especially when I'm struggling for a question, right?
Mhm.
Sometimes I'll say, I'm trying to figure out what the right question to ask here is. So it's like, I hear you making a bunch of claims, and I would like to establish like how you're thinking about, like, what your underlying thinking is that gets you to this. And so, I do try to, or I'll say, hey, well, if you watch the Josh video, the first claims on trains video that just came out this week, there's a moment at which I tell him, it's like, I asked you this specific question because I'm trying to get to this specific thing.
Mm.
Right. And so I'm really trying to kind of expose that. And I think that's, if you're teaching people what you're doing at the same time. So it's kind of like having it's the meta cognition, right? So you're not only getting them to think about their belief and their reasons, but you're also teaching them, oh, here's how you look for reasons, and here's how you conduct these kind of conversations. And I think maybe it probably also helps me, because sometimes thinking out loud about something helps me formulate it better than if I'm just trying to do it. So I don't want there to be like, there's this inner dialogue where I'm going, well, it's like strategy. Okay, what do? I do outsider test? Is this right? Do a real value chain check? Do I do this? Do I do that? I'd rather just have that be part of the conversation. Because I'll frequently, well, I don't know about frequently. I'm thinking of a particular conversation I had with a theist, Christian, where I did a real reason check, and she said, no, that wouldn't reduce my confidence because I've got all these other things, right? It was kind of like whack-a-mole with the claims. And so I told her, look, I don't think we've discovered yet what the real reason is that you believe. And that's the thing that I said, hey, I want to leave you with this. Like, if we get to talk again, I really want to get to, like, what's the actual reason that you believe. And so I like to kind of expose those things. So yeah, but I think in this particular case, I think I was just struggling for how to move forward in the conversation, and so talking about the process kind of helped me kind of get there.
I like the collaborative angle personally. I was thinking this might be straight from SE, but like how would your life be different if you didn't value this, or something along those lines, maybe?
Yeah. If you didn't help people, how would your life be different? I like that. Yeah, Mango, please do interrupt when we're talking, because so far I really liked what you've had to say, and I think you are bringing a different perspective that I really like. So,
Oh, thanks.
speak up, walk over us. We'll
Okay.
we'll do it. Why shouldn't you?
I guess from someone who is fairly new to SE, I would say that I didn't know what a normative claim was. So
I didn't either until this painfully long thread that Pierce started.
Oh, yeah.
It took me a long time to kind of get what was going on, but then once I started going, I'm like, oh, okay, there's some interesting points in there. Actually, I don't think I understood that thread until I had a few claims that were more value-based, and I started to get kind of the difference between them.
I thought you were going to say had a few beers. I mean, that could apply as well.
yeah, that could do it as well. But no, it was like after I'd had a few conversations, not really realizing that they were different sorts of conversations, I started to realize, oh, okay, there is a difference between this and, there's a difference between God is real and, let's see,
Everyone should vote.
yeah, and everyone should vote. That's right. It's time for another reminder. We're coming up on election season, folks. Don't sit at home. Make sure you're registered. Make sure your community is registered. Just vote.
Agreed.
All right,
Have you
let's
read the new
do-
module on claims yet? It was under, external review probably a couple months ago now.
I haven't read any of the stuff that hasn't been released. I have a smattering of background in content development, and I have a very busy life, and so I think if I started pulling at the thread of helping with the course, I could go deep into that and overcommit
Okay,
myself.
great. All right.
So I've been trying to stay away from it just because. Now I did just finish phase 1 of the course, and I'm looking forward to phase 2 because I got to get my little certificate. But no, I haven't yet.
Well, we're shooting for November, so we'll try to get it there.
Yeah, I mean, true or not, I mean, I guess, I think it's true, at least for me personally, that helping others, brings me sort of a sense of happiness or joy.
Okay.
And I think that is maybe I think is generally true for many people. Not all. I mean, there's a wide variety of people, but I think
There
for
sure
a lot of
are, yeah.
people, they find value and joy in helping others. So,
Yeah, no, that all makes sense. So why is doing things that you feel good a good thing?
I mean, I think there's to a certain degree, I think there's joy or feeling good has its own sort of inherent value if it doesn't sort of come at the cost of harming somebody else.
Interesting.
So
Interesting.
if there's just sort of, I don't know. Yeah. So that's,
I think I may have struggled with that question too, or that answering that question as well as Eddie. I think what you asked, like, what is good about feeling good? I think.
Why is making you feel good? Yeah, it's.
Yeah.
I think the middle part of this conversation, I'm really searching for the next thread, and I think we get there later. But definitely, like you can hear from the last question we were talking about, turning the value claim into the truth claim, you can hear him really struggling with that, right? And I think that shows, okay, that was not really a useful question. I feel like that was kind of a throwaway question. And now I feel like I'm just kind of struggling to get to something because I'm not quite sure where to go. I don't want the conversation to end. Like I feel that like there's some place to get to, but we're not there yet.
Fair enough. One thing that
There's a
I've
moment-
tried doing.
Mm.
Go ahead, Reed.
There was a moment where some may interpret something he said as relativism. It's something about, for
True
me,
for me.
but it was
Yeah.
really a personal claim. Like for me, helping others makes me feel good. So that's just, him giving testimony of his own personal consciousness, and those types of claims,
Yeah.
are fine in terms of true for me. Personal
Right.
stuff like that is usually fine.
Yeah, absolutely. That's not. Yeah, I wouldn't think of. That's not where I'm going to get out the Tic Tacs and start talking about. Can there be both not eating them out? I just thought about a potential question in there. What do you think it is about helping people that makes you feel good? What do you think about that as a question? What
Oh.
what is it about helping others that makes you feel good?
Yeah. What do you get out of it? I wonder if we could answer that question. Like if we were putting ourselves in his shoes, like could you answer the question you're asking or guess? I do like your question, by the way. I didn't want to skip over that.
No, I mean, where I would tend to go with that, I think if I was asked that, is I would probably talk a little bit about like the biological sources of empathy and mirror neurons and and the evolution of society and the fact that you're kind of wired feeling good about other people feeling good is one of the ways that we bond societies together, and it's probably an evolved trait, and it's adaptive because it helps bring the society together and extend the life of the species. That's probably where I'd go with it. Does anyone else have a?
I'd probably ask what's behind this feeling good. What underlies it? That's how I would ask it. I don't know if that would land or not, but
Yeah.
I don't know if I would have pursued this claim from the get-go as the main claim, because it seems very obvious, and it almost seems like he's just appeasing you. Like this is such a claim that no one would disagree with, so we can just talk about this without getting into any real conflict. It's just to,
I frequently say that I'm so goddamn sick of Seattle and its fucking positivity, because half the people I talk to, it's like, you should help other people, you should not, don't fucking be a dick, dude, was the do it on the train the other day, right? It's like this, or people are intrinsically good is another one that I get a lot. And there have been a few times when it gets to something later, and like I don't really want to change metaphorical trains in midstream to horribly mash a couple of metaphors, but yeah, it's like I talked to a guy the other day who his claim was that there's only 10 months of the year, not 12, and that led to time isn't real. But at the end of that chat, it got to, well, how do you know that time isn't real? Oh, it was revealed to me by the Holy Spirit. So at that point we got off the train, but I have his email address, and so I'm gonna follow up with him at a later date.
Okay.
Interesting.
we'll continue on then.
In some ways, I do think it's not that like pure, that like not like a hedonistic like pleasure, but in the sense of like there is some value, or there's some inherentness to sort of joy and happiness, kind
So-
of pursuit of happiness type of thing to a certain degree.
As a hypothetical,
Mm-hmm.
how do you balance your happiness in an action with the benefit, with the results of your actions on others?
Right.
And so kind of as a hypothetical,
Yeah.
what if you found out that
Right.
in you helping someone, something that really made you feel good, it actually was a net loss for
Right.
the person that you were helping?
Right. Then I would not. And so that's where I feel like helping others, if it in some ways, that's where, to me, if there's a net benefit for both you and the other person, where it's a win-win. But if somehow what you're doing is not helping that other person, even if you might feel good about it, I think overall, like I wouldn't feel good if I knew that there was sort of like, some harm.
Yeah.
Then it would sort of detract from that. And so, yeah, so in many ways, what helps me feel good about something is either sort of knowing there's no harm to anybody else, or that there actually is some sort of positive effect to somebody else.
So how would you discover what method would you use to determine that you're having a net positive effect?
And now I've turned it into a truth claim.
Yeah.
Now I'm on home turf. So I feel like from here the conversation goes much better. But it is, now we're talking about truth claim. Are you really helping someone?
And if I remember correctly, you stick on kind of this truth claim for a bit, but then I
Yeah.
think you kind of slowly get into kind of strategies, if I remember correctly. So
Yeah, it's like, how do you help someone? Do you give them $5 or do you give them a $5 pair of socks? Right? What are they going to do? Because there's the whole thing of like, oh, they're just going to go buy drugs, and then he gets into, well, maybe if you give him the socks, that frees up the $5 he gets from someone else to go buy drugs because he's already got his socks taken care of. But I'm getting ahead of us.
Yeah, that's hard. I mean, it's it's sort of easier if I think if there's sort of a more direct interaction with somebody. It's sort of harder if it's a more just the impact is more spread out. Then it's hard to measure. So, but if it's a direct interaction and you can sort of there's sort of an immediate, for example, if somebody is struggling with something and you help them out and they, you can sort of see a direct benefit or then I think that you can, that's one way to measure it. But at the same time, you also have to wonder if like, well, even if it's a short-term sort of positive, then there's sort of like the longevity of it. Is there some sort of long-term negative sort of like, is there some sort of enabling behavior or something like that? So that's all kind of goes into that sort of analysis in my mind.
How could we test to determine which of those things is true? How could you be more certain?
Yeah, that's, it's really hard to, I think.
Test what? The strategies for something?
How can we test to see whether he's actually helped someone as opposed to he just feels good because he thinks he's helped someone?
I don't think these are areas where we need to help people think more critically about things. This is very usually common sense stuff that people usually have no problem with. This is very general, mundane, could help others claim. And it's usually a perfectly fine test to see if they, if they felt better about it and there's no harm happening with the other person. This is all very common sense. So,
it is, but that's why. So I'm fine with SEing claims that are trivial, because to me it's all about getting to the way they think about their justifications and not about the claim itself. So I'm introducing the idea of testing, and maybe this is not heard, but kind of what I'm thinking is, it's not really about whether helping people is good. I think we all think helping people is good, but what is the epistemology that leads to that he will then go bring to other more thorny claims?
Encouraging self-reflection. Yeah. And I mean, it does get a little philosophical, but can we ever know that we're helping? Well, it is a line of questioning. Go ahead, Pierce.
If you did want to get to something perhaps a little bit more meaningful, you could have asked, like, can you think of an opportunity, or not an opportunity, can you think of a time in which someone was trying to help someone else, but they actually did more harm than good? And you can talk about that situation and say, hey, what's a better strategy that they could have used? Why wasn't their strategy effective? What can we learn from this? Stuff like that.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, me too.
There was something that he said in that last in that last bunch of phraseology that I don't, and maybe it wasn't worth jumping on, but he said sometimes it's easier to tell you're helping if you have a direct interaction rather than if it's more spread out. And I think, I mean, he was just talking off the cuff, but I don't know what he meant by more spread out. Does he mean
Maybe
that,
like donating to like a
yeah,
Or
Yeah,
or like hearing
right.
feedback, maybe like the person can provide feedback. Maybe if it's like a
Well, the direct interaction part, yeah, but I'm wondering about the thing about more spread out, and maybe he is thinking about, yeah, I give to an organization that I don't know what they're doing that's helping. Yeah. But again, he's being accosted by some weird guy with a recorder in his face on a train, so he's thinking on his feet, and I think he's doing a darn good job.
Test a lot of this stuff when it comes to human behavior. I mean, I think it's so hard to know what brings health and joy and those are, the only thing I can sort of go on is what sort of how things sort of might impact me and sort of how I might relate to it, but it's really hard for me to know if that's how somebody else is going to react to it.
So you're using yourself as a model to model the behavior on to see whether you would be benefit.
Yeah, so
Okay.
either me or like what I've read or,
Okay.
to the extent there is some sort of research or social science out there,
Yeah.
I would take that into account, but also understanding that a lot of the social sciences are soft sciences and not hard sciences and are
Right.
hard to determine.
So why is examining how you would feel
Mm-hmm.
or what the effect would be on you
Mm-hmm.
a good reason to believe that that same effect will happen to someone else?
I mean, in many ways, it's kind of the only thing I have to go on. So
Yeah.
it's, it's kind of how we determine all of our sort of worldviews.
I just want to point out I
Is
used
it?
that
Is it?
exact same turn of phrase that I used earlier, and that's the one that I learned from David and I've been trying to use. Why is blah a good reason to blah?
Yeah, and this time it was more specific because of
Well, because
the previous
we're
one.
talking about a truth claim, and so it
Mhm.
fits better, or I know how to use it better. Maybe. Sorry, Reed, I cut you off.
Yeah, it's just sometimes it's asked like, why is this way or this reason a good reason to believe something? But it should be like believe a claim like this or for claims similar to this.
Yeah, I agree. The first time I used it in this conversation, I was trying it on and it didn't land.
Is that how we?
Oh, Reed, did you have something to add?
And just the premise behind that kind of question is to check for reliable methods, like reliabilism, the form of justificationism. Is that what you're trying to get at? You're trying to check to see if they think in terms of justification and especially reliable justifications.
I imagine that I'm introducing the thought that of examining why something is a good reason. So the intent is to push it one layer down from this is my reason to this is the way I figure out what good reasons are.
Yeah, good for what? For justifying the claim infallibly or sufficiently?
Just I think at this point it's just getting the metacognition layer. It's like getting people to think about their justifications.
Okay. All right.
I mean that's the thought. I mean I'd love to hear other thoughts if you think that's not hitting the spot.
I'll potentially talk about it some more after we listen to some more.
Cool.
Listen, yeah.
I think it's a core.
Doing this on the train. You should have seen it when we were filming it.
No, I bet. I mean, I don't really understand how you do it. I mean, other than like through reading and or communicating with others and listening to how they view it. But I think that would, when we hear somebody else talk about their sort of experiences or worldview, we have to filter it through our own experiences. And if it's, I think for us to be able to make sense of it, we have to sort of connect it to something that we've sort of experienced or thought about. Otherwise, it's pretty hard. Now, we can sort of imagine, but I still think even when we're imagining somebody else's worldview and thoughts, there has to be some sort of like scaffolding or connection to the way that our experiences. Otherwise, it's really hard. So that's,
Would there be a way to find out maybe after the fact what the result of your actions had?
I mean, sure, certainly by like talking to, again, either that other person or multiple people. It might be harder again if there's an indirect connection.
Yeah.
Like, so let's say you're driving and, you either do something, let somebody in or don't let somebody in, or, you know what I mean? Or whatever, and, I don't know how you would talk to everybody, but you can kind of generally get a sense of how people feel about how somebody else drives or something like that. And,
Okay. Yeah. The hypothetical situation that's occurred to me as we've been talking is like, let's say you see somebody on the street who's apparently homeless or in need. Like, what could be the effects of giving them $5 versus what could be the effects of giving them like a $5 pair of socks?
Okay.
Like, how would you evaluate the potential outcomes, and how would you determine what the right course of action would be, and what might be the most moral value for everyone involved?
Yeah, I mean, in that sort of situation, I think there's sort of different lines of thought in terms of like, there's sort of, and this is where, not being an expert myself and sort of what people are going through, but I think, I do read and try to pay attention, and there's a sort of a line. There's some research that shows, for example, giving people money, like there's sort of the concern that if you give people homeless money, they're going to use it on drugs or things that they're addicted, but that apparently does not sort of play out in the research. The research seems to show that they will use that for meeting their basic needs. Now, I'm not there's probably a wide range, and so but those would be the things that I would be concerned about or thinking about, like if I'm giving this person money, am I sort of really helping them? There might be some immediate relief, but like what is this really helping them long term, right? This, and so that's what would be going through my brain, and that's sort of like, even if you talk to that person immediately, like it's hard to know like what would be the long term meaning, and there can be short term, it can just be a short term thing, and that's okay too. But if you're trying to make a longer term sort of analysis, then that's hard to measure. But
so like, for example, like I'm thinking through this right at the same time as you, because I've also thought about like, what do we give? How do we help people who are on the street? So if you were to evaluate them taking $5 and going and buying their next fix, or taking the $5 and buying a meal that they need,
right? How
do you evaluate the moral difference between those?
I mean, it's certainly wouldn't feel good about sort of like if I felt like I was just helping them buy their next fix. I mean, on the one hand, they might need that in the short term, but long term, I would feel like I'm supporting a behavior that is harming them, right? And so that doesn't feel great. And so then it's like, well, you think you're doing something to help, but maybe you're harming them. I think buying a meal,
Columbia
I would
City.
feel better about, but then so you also have to wonder, like, well, okay, they spent that money to buy the meal, but then does that free up some money for them to buy a fix if they are addicted to something? And so, that's just sort of how I would analyze it. But
Cool.
this is my stop.
All right.
A really interesting
Yeah.
discussion.
Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thanks for the interview.
And enjoy the rest of your day.
Yeah.
All right.
And that's it.